Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode of the African Father in America podcast. My name is Simon Javan Okello, and I am truly excited to be here with you for our conversation today. I am expecting a really special guest who will be joining us not too long from now. Our guest is joining us all the way from Nairobi, Kenya, and you will learn more about her when she joins. But as usual, we are here for African Proverb. Today's proverb is from Kenya, where I originally come from, and also my guest is from Kenya, and I'm really excited to see when she can join us. I just want to check in with Lavender, could you please make sure you send Daisy the link to the eCam live so that she is able to join us, because I waited just a little bit before we start so that we could create space for her to join. I do know that she's joining for sure. I see Simply E has already joined us. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. I encourage you to ping in 3 to 5 people if you're on Clubhouse to join us for the conversation. And if you are on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel so that when we are live, with the show another time, you can also join us. Our conversation today is going to be grounded on this amazing Kenyan proverb that says that only someone else can scratch your back. Only someone else can scratch your back. I want to know what this proverb means to you. If you're listening or if you're watching. If you're watching on YouTube, I want you to type it in the chat. Let me know what this proverb means to you. Only someone else can scratch your back. This is a Kenyan proverb. And if you are listening in on Clubhouse and you haven't joined the stage, I want you to take a minute and do that now. We are going to have an amazing conversation that you really need to get close to the stage in order for you to be engaged with. As usual, we have the 3 nuggets of wisdom that I am going to share just to open our conversation today. So give me a moment as I bring on our guest here, please. Hey, Simply E.
Grand Rising.
Hey, Daisy. Hey, Daisy, can you hear me? Okay, one second. Okay, I'll bring you on, Daisy, whenever you're ready. But we are live already. We just started the show, and I can't wait to include you in this conversation. In the meantime, I just want to let everybody know the proverb that we're discussing today. Actually, I'm going to just pin it at the top of the room for the sake of those who cannot, for the sake of those who can join us on YouTube. I just want to add the link to the top of the room so that you can easily do so. Simply E, I just want you to take a moment and let everybody who is joining us for the first time know what the Wednesday sessions look like. And I also know that Chioma can't join us today, so you're probably going to read the poem again. So go ahead and take the space.
Sure, welcome into the space. This is a great space because no matter where you're joining from, whether you're looking at the faces on YouTube this morning, or if you're in the space of Clubhouse, this is a great space. The Proverbs remind us of how we should be living, or just a reminder of things that we can do to improve, or just a reflection, being able to look into a space and just take a moment to be quiet and take in the world and life. I really...
One moment. Hey, Daisy. Hey, Daisy, how are you doing? I can't hear you for some reason. You must be muted. So let's see if I can unmute you from my end. One moment, Simply E. Okay. Take your time. So simply carry on while we figure out how to bring on Daisy. She's already here. I think just the connection might be the challenge at the moment. So
No
carry on.
worries. No worries. If you're in the clubhouse space, definitely if you've got input, or if you just want to hear a little bit closer on stage, raise your hand and you can come up. And I think that's a great experience. I don't know how many places you can go and be able to get that experience right on the spot. So if you have something to say in the space to give us a little bit of your perspective on the proverb, don't be shy. And also, if you've got friends that you think would enjoy the space or be able to give a little bit more insight, bring them in here, ping them in. Again, if you're on YouTube, you'd want to subscribe so that you can hear all the tidbits and be able to see the wonderful faces on YouTube as well. And don't forget Instagram and Twitter, because those are spaces that the Daily African Proverb, African Father in America are also in those spaces. And the proverb, you'll be able to view that early in the morning. So loving it, and I'm looking forward to see what Chioma has to say in her writing about today's proverb. If I'm reading it today, it's going to be quite an honor.
Excellent. Hey Daisy, can you hear me now? I just want to make sure. I had to give space to one of my friends and poets that join us every Wednesday, but I can't hear you. I think you're still muted, Daisy. Do you see the mute button on your end? I don't want to unmute it because we can do mute and unmute for a while. Okay, if you're unable to see it, I can try and unmute. Let me know. You seem to be, you seem to have muted yourself. I can't hear you completely. Okay. No, not yet. I can't hear you yet. There you go. I think it's good now. But okay, can you? Now I see you talking, but I can't hear you. Okay. I wonder if do you want to use your laptop? Are you using your cell phone at the moment? Yeah, your laptop might work too. Cell phones are always good with video quality, but your laptop might work too. So take your time. We have time. Okay, Daisy. So we'll carry on for now and wait for you. But I see you, but I can't hear you completely for some reason. I wonder if you have some time. You could have Bluetooth and it's elsewhere. So maybe your Bluetooth hears me, but maybe that's what's going on. But I see you very well. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Excellent. So thank you all for bearing with us. I have to say that I was nervous preparing for today's guest, because she's very, very knowledgeable. She's very educated, and she literally rubs shoulders with the who and who in Kenya, and in Africa. She's a columnist for one of the biggest newspapers in Kenya. And she's a political analyst. She's a PhD candidate, and she was in the secretariat for Honorable Martha Karua, who is probably the most recognizable African lawyer, throughout Africa, female lawyer throughout Africa. She's taken. She's. I don't know. We will just talk a little bit with Daisy, but I just. I interview a lot of guests on the show, but I don't get nervous when interviewing a lot of people. But when I was researching the work that Daisy has done, I kind of got a little nervous because I knew that she's so ready for anything. And the same applies to many of you that help me make this show happen every day. But really, when we have someone special, we have to just honor them, and I just have to say that. Now, for those who are just joining us, the proverb that we're discussing today says that only someone else can scratch your back. And I think we should go straight to the poem that Chioma prepared for us, so that we can, we can learn what Chioma was thinking while we wait for Daisy to join us, and then we can continue on with the rest of the show. For those who also are joining us for the first time, we gather here every Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we bring African proverbs from all over Africa. Anyway, 1 second. 1 second. Hey, Daisy. Excellent. How are you doing today?
Much better.
Excellent.
Thanks. How are you?
I am doing well. I was just telling everyone that while preparing for today's show, I got nervous, because I know how great you are, So I was like, what am I going to discuss with Daisy today? But it's finally here, and we are broadcasting the show on YouTube, but also we are on Clubhouse, where we have a live audience, and we are all excited to have you. How is Nairobi this afternoon?
Nairobi this afternoon is great. It's a bit chilly. We now have beautiful rain. It's getting green again, and we're getting some relief from the dust and the heat. So it's wonderful.
Excellent. So the African Father in America podcast has been going on for a while, a little over 2 years. This is something that just before the pandemic started is when I began producing it, and then building a great community around it across the diaspora. But I'm from Kenya originally, Kisumu. So the work you do actually impacts me and a lot of the people that work for the organization and the company that I run. But really, today we wanted to dive deep into a Kenyan proverb. The show is going to, we are going to start with this Kenyan proverb that we prepared. It says, only someone else can scratch your back. So I want you to maybe take a stab at this proverb, share with us what it is that came to your mind when we shared it with you, and then we will, because we are a little behind time. From there, we just want to learn a little bit about you. We will go into a childhood story that inspires who you are today, and so why don't you give us your thoughts when it comes to this proverb?
Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. I'm so happy and excited to be here. I really like the proverb. I think it's a beautiful way of saying no man is an island. Only someone else can scratch your back. It's just, I think it's a demonstration of the symbiotic nature of human relationships. Sometimes we can think that we are self-sufficient or we are independent, and then circumstances arise a lot of times when that show us that we need other people. In this very literal sense of somebody else can scratch your back, of course you can get a stick and try and scratch the itch. But then there's something intimate about somebody else scratching your back. If you're in an office and you have an itch, you'll probably ask your colleague who's your friend and not your boss to scratch your back. If you're at home and you have guests, you'll probably ask your child or your wife or your husband to scratch your back and not the guest. So there's something about it that is about warmth and intimacy. But then also, there's something about somebody else scratching your back that signifies like a social debt. I scratch your back and then you need me to scratch your back another time. And of course, scratching one's back meaning many things or many favors or many ways you can be there for somebody else. So it's about that interconnectedness of the human species. It's a great proverb.
I love that. I have 3 daughters, and my second born somehow she always just shows up and says, scratch my back, scratch it right here. And there's a sense of urgency that she presents herself with that, is unforgettable. So I love your response to this
Yeah,
proverb.
and that itch keeps moving around the back, So
Right,
then
right.
move here, scratch there, yeah.
Right. Now, I just want to let everybody who is watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us. And also for those who are watching, listening on Clubhouse, and those who will listen later on Spotify and Apple, thank you again for joining us for today's show. As usual, one of the questions I love asking my guests is really, a childhood story, something that happened when you are 8 to 16 that really drives who you are today. And looking at some of the things you've been working on in the last year, you are in the you are in the secretariat for Honorable Martha Karua, and you're a PhD candidate. I didn't know you were a parent, but I saw the tweet that you shared that you will be touching on parenting. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But you have so much on your plate, and I share a story that when I was 8 years old, my mother gave me a bicycle. We lived in Manyata in Kisumu. During elections, everybody talks about Kisumu, Kondele, Manyata. Those were the areas where we walked every day. But I distributed milk and bread in a very large area from the time when I was 8 years old. And those years shaped who I am today, gave me the discipline to show up every morning for this show, but also the discipline to produce the biggest African festival in the west coast of the US, Madaraka Festival, and and do multiple other things. And I always ask my guests this because everybody has a story, everybody has the beginning of their story, something that really ignites what they do. So before we dive deep into some of the incredible things that you do, we want to go back into what is it that shaped the beginning of your story?
Yeah. I think I don't know if it's so much a story or just a reference to the person who really influenced me, growing up and even now. And I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people, but that's my mom. I grew up just like you, I didn't grow up in the big city. I grew up in Kericho. I actually came to Nairobi when I was going to university. That's when I came to live here in Nairobi. But I spent the whole of my childhood in Kericho. And we, at some point, my father worked in the tea estates. At that time, it was called Brookbond. It's now Unilever. And in 1993, we moved from the company house to our own home, which my parents had built in the village. And we did not have electricity. And neither did our neighbors. And there was no, nearby installation that had electricity that would, allow us to access it. So this is where my mother comes in. When we moved in, she had so much faith that we were going to get electricity through prayer and petitioning. Now the prayer was a constant in our house. I grew up in a Christian household. But the petitioning was, she literally identified who is in charge of electricity in this country. And at that time, it was the MD for KPLC was called Sam Gishuru, who we did not know personally as a family. And I don't know how, but long story short, we went to his home to ask him to give us electricity in our village. And it happened. These are, parents who didn't have any sort of influence, who didn't have any sort of leverage in government, who didn't know anybody who would give us that connection. But somehow we made our way to Samuel Gishuru's house to ask him to give us stima in our home in the village, and he did. So that story has always inspired me in terms of not only faith, in terms of prayer, but also when you identify what you need and tell yourself that you're going to get it, and then you make plans to do it, no matter how impossible or improbable it seems, it can happen, or you can make things happen. And I have that belief, and it's been a big driver in my life.
That's so wonderful. That's so incredible. Thank you, Daisy. One other thing that we do every Wednesday is that we have a poetry session here in the African Father in America podcast. So we have a resident poet that shows up every Wednesday. She's from Philadelphia, and she shares a poem. She takes these African proverbs and turns them into a poem. But today she could not join us. But she sent the poem. So another poet who is also joining us every Wednesday will read it towards the end of our conversation. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. But I want us to explore some of the work that you've been doing. I know that you're a journalist. You're a columnist for the Standard Media Group. You are you're a political analyst. I just feel that you are a force to reckon with, and I feel that I wanted to connect with you before you get so big. But listen, share with us.
Thank you for that hope for me. Yeah.
Of course. Share with us, when you look back, over the last year, you are not only rubbing shoulders with Honorable Martha Karua and Raila Odinga, but over the last few years, you've been interviewing the former governor of Bomet. You've been interviewing. You've been to interviews. I was watching a few of your interviews with the Situation Room, and just seeing how articulate you are, how composed you are, and I feel that you should share with us maybe your top 3 things when you look back in your career that make you so proud. Things that if you're sitting with a number of African girls from across the continent and trying to encourage them, what are the 3 stories or 3 nuggets of your journey that you'd highlight for them?
Thanks for that question. I think the first one, I'll say them in order of recency. So yes, as you mentioned, I worked at the Martha Karua Secretariat during the just finished elections, just the elections that we had earlier this year in August, and that was a great career highlight for me. And I say so because I was working for somebody who I truly admire, and a politician who I truly believe in. And that's something that's really rare, to believe in a politician, because a politician by their nature is not to be believed in. But she is one of a kind, and it was an honor to work for her in such close proximity, and to see that there's this saying, you should never meet your heroes, but in this case it didn't apply, because it was meeting her, she was all that I imagined her to be. So she is an inspiration, and I do count that as a career highlight, working at the Secretariat. Something I feel is a personal accomplishment is I started writing a column in 2012 for the Star, for the Nairobi Star then. And I'm proud that I was able to be consistent for many years, because writing a column, and many writers will attest to that, especially, and even you as a podcast producer, something that you have to do on a daily basis or a weekly basis, that requires you to be creative, that requires you to prepare, that requires you to give your all, was very challenging, and is very challenging. I'm currently on a sabbatical and will be returning next month to my column. But I am proud of that accomplishment, not only starting to write, but also being consistent in doing something that is difficult.
Now, did you give us the third one? I think.
Did I?
Yeah, I think you have.
I only said 2.
Yeah, you have one more.
So I think the third one would be more general, because it extends beyond the career scope and also to personal life. An accomplishment, I would count it as an accomplishment, but I'll also use it as advice to young people who are in whichever sector or space. Cultivating a culture of reading. I'm an avid reader, and I feel like that is what has enabled me to, or has given me the confidence to participate in all the spaces that I have participated in, because the acquisition of knowledge then gives you the confidence to contribute, but also it's just a pleasurable activity. And I know not everybody is inclined to read, and that is okay. But fortunately, we are now living at a time when there's so many resources besides reading that can expand your knowledge, can widen your perspective and your worldview. Even Netflix, or other online platforms where you can find documentaries and all sorts of resources that are informative and educative. So I count that habit that I acquired as an accomplishment, and that I have sustained it is an accomplishment as well.
Yeah, definitely. I love all the three, things that you shared with us. I do want to just bring our we have a number of friends and family and contributors who are joining us, who are going to be able to just share a comment or their thoughts in regards to the proverb that we're discussing, maybe in the next 5 minutes. But for now, I just want you to explore things with me from a global perspective. Here in the US, we just had the midterm elections. They just ended literally maybe a week. Some are not even done. We have the Atlanta senatorial race that is still, going for another round, next month. The US midterm elections were the most volatile that has ever been seen, and there was a lot of shock when people were observing the kind of candidates that were running for office. And I feel that the shock that the Kenyan election left us with, for me, I haven't really recovered from it. After observing some of the interviews and just seeing the way that you have accepted it, considering how deeply involved you are, I feel that I need to grow up a little faster. Talk to us about, number one, what did you think of the US midterm elections? And do you think that because the rumor out there is that the US had something to do with the Kenyan election, so talk about the midterm elections in the US from where you are. What did you think? And did the US also have anything to do with the Kenyan election? And then from there, I want you to also talk about Africa in general, because I feel that we have there's a new generation of leaders that are taking up leadership positions, and I feel that you're one of those leaders. Winnie Odinga is one of those leaders. In all sectors, the generation of Raila Odinga, even in journalism, you find that there is people are being phased out. Nature is phasing people out. What are your thoughts in regards to that? Do you feel that our generation is ready for this monumental opportunity?
Yes. I think there was 5 questions in one there, but let me start with the...
That's true. Just explore. You don't have to answer all of them. You can pick one and just focus on that.
Yeah, but no, it's interesting that you lumped those questions together, because there is a common thread. There is a common thread in terms of, it's not just the leadership that is shifting generationally, it's also the voter base, it's also the electorate that is changing, and it's changing all over the world. The midterms, the American midterms is a good indication of that. What's happening in Iran is a good indication of that. Young people are swaying, and I think for the US midterms, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this, because I haven't done a deep dive into it. But my peripheral observation is that the American electorate is moving towards swinging towards a more liberal stance, and which then begins to shake some institutions like the GOP, like the Republican Party, for instance, that is rooted in tradition, that is rooted in conservatism. And why? Because all over the world, this new generation that is coming up, I don't know if we are calling them Generation X, what's this generation that is really talked about, that is really defiant, then just because things are the way they are, they're not going to, accept it. They're not going to accept that this is the type of leadership that we deserve, for instance, or like you see the what's happening, the terrible things that are happening in Iran, and you see that a majority of the protesters are really young people. A majority of the voices that have led from the front in terms of putting out the conversation to the world are young people who are on TikTok. In fact, some of them have paid the ultimate penalty and been killed or been imprisoned, but they are so young, but taking their civic duty very seriously, and without that fear that may have been present in previous generations in terms of respect your leaders, or because this is the way it is and it's tradition, then it must remain so. No, they're breaking the barriers. And then what we are seeing, therefore, is perhaps around the world a new strain of leaders that will increasingly reflect the thinking of this new generation. Here in Kenya, I remember having a conversation with somebody last week. There was an article that was going around that was quite volatile about this member of parliament that was proposing an elimination of the presidential term limit, and we instead revert to age. And a lot of people said, you know what, that's not going to happen in Kenya. There was that conversation online saying, no, this is not Uganda, or this is not a country where we will be complacent and let somebody be a dictator or let somebody extend their term limit. And I kept asking, if we could put a finger on why would it not happen in Kenya? What is it that makes it? Is it, we can make as much noise as possible on Twitter, on online spaces, but what is it that we can do as Kenyans that will prevent a leader from being despotic or from putting in place unfavorable or bad laws, such as that one of extending the presidential term limit? And I didn't really get an answer from the different people that I was speaking with, because I kept seeing it as, we have that braggadocio as Kenyans saying, not us, it won't happen to us. But I have this thought that there's this generation that we see online people complaining about, in the office, they don't behave the way other people do, or they don't respect quote unquote authority, or most importantly, they speak up for their rights. I think that is the generation, and those are the young people that would shift our political culture to the point where the electorate are not just recipients or acted upon, but also can push back, the way these young people in Iran are doing, or the way the young Americans in the ballot did. So no, you're right in saying that there's a generational shift, and I think that generational shift, both in leadership and in the electorate, is one that is positive and can potentially change the global political landscape.
Thank you so much, Daisy. Now, we'll just take a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes or so, to hear from some of our contributors who just are going to make a few comments and, to our conversation, and also share their thoughts on the proverb. Thank you again, Daisy, for taking the time to join us today. It means a lot. Hey, Lavender. Of course. Share with us where you're joining us from, Lavender. What are your thoughts in regards to the conversation we're having with Daisy, and also the proverb that we have for today? Thanks a lot. Okay, we'll go on to Simply E. I think Lavender is away from her microphone or something. Simply E, why don't you share with us your own perspective on the proverb, comment on the conversation, and also share the poem that Chioma shared with us today. Thank you so much.
Only someone else can scratch your back. Um, it's very important to do what we can, right? To be as independent as we can. And we've got different levels, right? Different levels of interest, different levels of expertise. But as we navigate, we'll find that there are just some things that we can't master or some things we can't do. So we should just be okay with that. And in being okay with that, those things that we can't do, we should let somebody else help us with. And so this proverb, only someone else can scratch your back, I think it's just an acceptance of the things that you can't do or that you can't handle that you may need help with. Acceptance is a really big thing. And so that's my interpretation of the proverb. I liked the conversation this morning, Simon. I just took the opportunity to just listen in. I, I I was very impressed by just the way that the young lady expressed herself, and it's a great thing to be able to express yourself um, in such a way where people know where you're coming from. But I also love the beautiful infusion of feminine energy in her energy as well. So that's just me being an introvert and taking it all in. I just love it when you can hear the infusion of strength and also sweetness in a person's the way that they're expressing. Um, and so I know that's probably not what you were looking for, but that's how I took it in.
No, it's
And if
beautiful.
and if you would like, I can go ahead and share Chioma's poem. Um,
Thank you.
um, Lavender shared it with me, and
Go
I think
ahead,
it's
please.
beautiful.
I would love to listen to it. And I think
Okay,
Daisy is
Chioma,
also excited to listen to it.
yeah, she sent her interpretation as well. Now
Absolutely.
today, Chioma chose to express her poem in the form of a haiku. And for those who may not have ever heard of a haiku is expressing in the syllables of typically 575. It's a very short poem, normally just 3 lines long. So it's very short, but it can be very impactful. And her short poem today is a haiku. It says, I can't without you. You can't without me. We can't without each other. It's just so potent. It's quick and it's potent. um, I love this expression. And it's so fast, I'll say it one more time. I can't without you. You can't without me. We can't without each other. I love it. I love it.
It's
Um,
beautiful.
it is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Simply E. I appreciate you for always contributing to the show and for helping build, this platform. This is so that you just know, I've been producing Africa Day for like 5 years, and the last 2 years I've done it virtually. And one of the programming for Africa Day we've had is poetry, for 1 hour poetry session where we bring poets from all over Africa, including Nairobi and the diaspora. And Simply E has helped with that a lot as well. So I want to go on to Stephen. Just quickly, Stephen, where are you joining us from? What's your thought on the proverb quickly? And any comments to our special guest today? Thank you so much. We'll go on to Stella. Stella, how are you doing? Steven seems to be far from his microphone, so we'll just keep going quickly. Hey, Stella, share with us your thoughts on the proverb and any comment to our special guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simon. Hello, everyone. This is Taylor from Kenya. Sorry. Uh, Thank you, Daisy, for being here. I love your story, especially when you were talking about electricity not being there. I literally walked with you through. I went back in time with you through those days, and I know what it meant to not have electricity. Thank you for sharing that story. It brought back memories that are special to me. Uh, uh, Simply E, thank you for that poem. I just love when you read the poems. It's so inspirational. The voice is so, I don't know, I don't want to say sweet, but I just love the way you read the poems. On today's proverb, which talks about only someone else can scratch your back, I want to agree with what you said, Simon, what Daisy has said, that we just need each other. And the poem has also emphasized it in a special way that we need each other. We need to come together. We need to collaborate. We need to work together. Even in our neighborhood, we raise kids together. Yesterday, I was just making a joke in our WhatsApp group of our neighborhood, how my house has become a cartoon watching zone because I have guests every day from morning to evening. They just come to watch cartoons. And I was wondering why they come to my house to watch cartoons. Then later I learned that there's a way they can play games on the TV. It's something I didn't know. So you might think that you are all alone in the neighborhood or in a given place, but there's a way that people want to be with you. So even when you feel self-sufficient and all that, it's important that we make room for people who impact our lives positively, to allow them to also bring their positive vibe, their positive energy into our life. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you so much, Stella. We'll go on to just quickly Brother Art and Latanja and Robert and then Queen. Then we'll come back to you, Daisy, to close the show for us. Brother Art, how are you? Where are you joining us from? And what are your thoughts in regards to the proverb, or what's your comment to our guest today?
Peace and love, this is Brother Earth. I'm coming from the North Carolina territory. Honors to you, Simon, to you and the guests, as well as all of the family for coming forth and sharing the wisdom of the ancestors. And I kind of came in late in the conversation, but I did enjoy to hear the lady express, her experiences and a lot of the things. And I really appreciate the part about her being so passionate about knowledge, or and how it gives her confidence, her building her mind. And I find it very interesting. And as far as the proverb concerned, only someone else can scratch your back. What that makes me think of is the importance to be able to work with others or the network. Like um, Simply E was stating, you know, regardless, you can't do everything by yourself. At some point in time, you need some form of help or assistance, and it's good to keep that in mind. To be able to work with others and be able to give and receive, because it's the saying: you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or quid pro quo. But I'll park my plane right there. Peace and love, family. It's Brother Earth.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Hey, Latanja, how are you? What are your thoughts on the proverb? Where are you joining us from? Thank you so much.
Good day, Simon, and thank you so much. I'm here in Marietta, Georgia. I know when Daisy, you spoke about being defiant in terms of the generation, it makes me think in some essence about the song by the OJs called Backstabbers. They smile in your face all the time, they want to take your place. Backstabbers. And so, in that sense, this proverb reminds us about the power of trust. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we then become equipped with the sensitivity, sustainability, and security of knowing we're not alone. Only someone else can scratch your back, especially in those hard to reach places that we tend to overlook based upon being overwhelmed. It's only when we include a helping hand that we can overcome together. And it also reminds me of something growing up where I constantly hear, I got your back. So we need to get back to that, to where we know how to blend together. And I'll land there. Thank you, Sonia.
Of course, of course. Thank you so much. Hey, Robert, how are you? What are your thoughts on the proverb? And any comment to our guest is also welcome. Thank you.
Hey, great day, Simon and everyone. Simon, you're doing a great job being so optimistic and sharing so much. To your guests, very spot on, appreciate it, love listening and learning. I'm not going to contribute to your question there or to the proverb. I think it speaks for itself, and I don't want to add to what everybody else has already said. But thank you, and keep these rooms going, okay? Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate you. Hey, Queen.
Oh, lastly, I actually carry my own wooden back scratch, but I totally get the get the proverb. Okay, but I put some comments in the chat for you all.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Queen, you're the last contributor before we come back to Daisy.
Thank you so much, and I'll be very brief. For me, the proverb, uh, only someone else can scratch your back. It's like a proverb that we have at home too that really rides on this one. And it says, one hand cannot clap. And it also says to me that, like the sister said again, trust. Because you know where your back is scratching, but you're trusting this person behind you to carry out the navigation and to scratch your back. And so as we do these talks and find out more about ourselves and each other, we're learning to trust again. Because without trust, you cannot have a strong foundation in a relationship. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. Well, while you are all contributing, I was actually thinking, Daisy, that we did scratch each other's back today because with podcasting, the guest and the host are scratching each other's back. I reached out and you accepted the invitation, and we're just doing something beautiful that is very similar to what we're talking about. But for this part of the conversation, I want you to reflect on what people said. If you picked one or two things you want to touch on, that's great. But also think about how we can support your work. If you have articles out there that you want us to read, if you have a book that you want us to read, if you have a social media handle that you want us to follow you on, this is a good time for you to speak about all of that before we wrap up.
Okay. Maybe I'll begin by just making a quick response to the comments from the audience. It's very interesting because this today's proverb, sounds very straightforward, but then there's been so many different interpretations. The interpretations have been so layered and so different. And I think that just shows the complexity of the human mind, but also especially the human mind when we think about human relationships and human connectedness. So people have talked about trust. People have talked about quid pro quo, that I'm doing this for you so you can do this for, and what I was calling social debt, and so many other layers. So it's very interesting. I am on Twitter. My handle is at Daisy Minor 7. So please follow me on there. I think that's the main platform that I use for expression and for sharing what I'm doing. I'd also encourage you to please listen to a podcast I recorded last year on a BBC podcast called Dear Daughter. So I'm on one of the episodes, but all the other episodes with other people are really incredible. It's a it's a podcast where people write and read out letters that they're writing to not just their daughters, but their children about different topics in life. And I chose to cover the taboo topic of sex. So when you get a chance, do go to the BBC website or anywhere where you get your podcasts. But finally, Simon, I'd like to say that I'm really grateful that you reached out. Thank you for this opportunity you've given me to come onto your amazing podcast. You're doing a really great job. You have built a really good and strong community, and it's really important to, and also quite interesting because you're in the diaspora, you're in America, even as the name of your podcast suggests. But your roots are squarely at home. It's very easy to see that, and I love the proverb format, the African proverb format, because I think it's an art that is in danger of being forgotten, and so it's great to have this platform where we can talk about it and we can reflect as a community. May I ask you a question?
Of course, I knew this was coming. Go ahead.
How long have you been in America? And then I'll tell you why I have asked that question.
Since June 2010, I first... should I stop there? Or should I say something more?
Sorry?
I said June 2010. That's when I moved to the US. But I first visited the US in 2009.
So that's what, 12 years you've lived there?
Yeah, 12 years. But I come home every year, actually. I come home every year. I have a lot that I do there. I work there. I have a team that is based back home, and I am the first son of a polygamist family, so I have a lot of responsibilities back home there.
Siblings?
Yeah, but
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. So the reason I asked the question is because I love that your Kenyan accent is still intact and strong after all those years in America. It's incredible. I don't know, perhaps you code switch when you're interacting there in America, but it's lovely to hear the nice strong Kenyan accent.
I don't code switch. It's something I intentionally chose to retain. And as I said earlier, I'm a father of 3 girls, and I talk to my girls in Kiswahili and Luo, and their mother talks to them in English, and
Wonderful.
yeah, I'm very, very persistent when it comes to my love for my culture. In fact, when I go to the village, the elders talk to me in Luo, and they don't talk to other young people in Luo very well because they don't appreciate it, So I know the value in our culture, and I love it. So I don't want to feel like a stranger when I'm articulating myself in my language,
Wonderful. That's something that we have in common, you and I, because I speak to my children in Kalenjin as well.
Very nice,
in Kipsigis.
Very nice. Chamge.
So yeah, that's great to hear. Well done.
Yeah, I know just a little. Hey, Desi, I know that you are a very, very busy person, and you taking time to join me here really gave me a lot of confidence about the work I do as a podcaster, as a storyteller. So I just want you to know that this has been one of my favorite episodes to prepare for. And I feel like even though I prepared, I was not prepared enough, because you're really, really a force to reckon with. But before we finish, there are incredible people that
Thank you.
didn't contribute to our conversation that are listening and watching, and I just want to quickly give them a shout out. Anne Lutomia, I see you, MK and Naita and Rocky and Ned. You know, we have a global audience. Rocky's in Singapore, and you know, we just have people from all over the world joining us for today's conversation. So I really thank you all. And again, Daisy, thank you, and all the best. You know, I would love to continue on and do more things together. So I will definitely be reaching out again. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening. Okay, I kind of lost Daisy there, so we're just going to wrap up in a moment. Daisy, is there something that I missed that you'd like to touch on before we push the end button?
No, I think it was pretty comprehensive, and it was a very great natural conversation and reactions and interaction rather. So it was great.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and take great care of yourself. I'm really grateful.
You.
Okay, bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. African tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington.